Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. He's Tom Vanderford, super fan extraordinaire for his weekly segment. We're going to get to him in just a second. But I do want to let everybody know that the Grove Collective, they're in their Elite Eight for their March to Victory campaign that they're currently running. It's a bracket style NCAA tournament March Madness thing where the goal is to raise $10 million over the course of the month or 10,000 members added to the Grove Collective. So check them out at thegrovecollective.com/march to victory. Again, that's thegrovecollective.com/march to victory, and they can hook you up. Also, they have promo codes on the website. If you go to that web address to where Realtree will match a little bit what you're willing to donate as well. There's promo codes that you won't need to put in whenever you sign up. So go to the grovecollective.com/march to victory and they can hook you up. Anyway, Tommy, how you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. Before we get started, my buddy Nolan at my new job told me to give a shout out to Dale, the milkman Matheny. So I promised him I'd do that. Supposedly he's a huge rebel, like a third generation reb. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I'm doing
in my head, he is like a guy that's like running the playgrounds of Corinth to where he just shows up on Sundays. Oh no, the milkman's here. He is here to deliver. That's what's in my head right now.
Oh yeah. I'm telling you. Well, the backstory I got was different, but it hilarious nonetheless. But no, I'm very excited. You know, we missed last week. I hope you're feeling better. Mm-hmm. But I'm excited, man. There's just so much going on right now.
Yeah, and you know about this. Whenever you have brain tumors, you're fine until you're not. And it can happen with the blink of an eye. And I needed to go into the ER, so I missed Tom. He was the interview that I missed last Friday. So we'll see exactly what's going on. I'm fine now, going through all my walks, doing all my normal stuff. But last Friday, I got to the point where I just couldn't speak. And that was scary, especially for my wife.
Yeah, exactly. So glad things are better. You're always in my prayers, brother.
Appreciate it, Tommy. So spring practice has started at Ole Miss. We have not learned that much because the entirety of spring practice for Ole Miss, and they're 4 practices in, getting ready for their 5th one if they practice this morning on this Saturday. Mm-hmm. But 4 practices in, there's been about 10 to 12 minutes of viewing for people to check in. I've had Michael Katz on the show talking about what he saw. I've had David Eckert on the show talking about what he saw. And basically the consensus is nobody saw a whole bunch. But the things that stood out, there's 2 factoids that we've talked about over the course of the week. And that is Suntarine Perkins is working out at the jack position on defensive line, which I think he's going to move around. He's going to be versatile. So yeah, something like that. And Nareel White is the youngster that is standing out to Jordan Watkins. And those are kind of the 2 factoids over the course of this week.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We, that's kind of what I've surmised as well. It's Perkins. I think, I would love for him to use him like LSU uses a guy named Perkins as well, but he's a super athlete. He's got a nose for the ball, and that's just gonna make us that much better moving him around. And I think Pete Golding and Arnett and all those guys, B Brown, so on and so forth, they're gonna have our defense humming. We're gonna have some real life land sharks this year.
Yeah, I think that they're limiting the visibility of the media and everybody. They're not, so far to this point, they're not doing open practices or anything like that because they want to limit the stew that they're creating on the defensive side of the ball, because we all know what to expect from a Pete Golding defense.
Exactly.
But what is Zach Arnett going to bring to the table? What is B Brown going to bring to the table? And how are they going to mix them up? Because I do think it's going to change a little bit. Ole Miss was mostly a zone team a year ago. I think it's very possible with A.B. Brown that Ole Miss is playing a little bit more man defense in 2024.
I agree. I agree. And we've got the players to do so. Everybody that follows football knows that if your front seven is really good, it makes your defensive backfield look really good as well. So that it's a lot easier to play man when you've got a defensive line like we've got.
Yeah, and I'm kind of excited. That's one of the things when everybody's talking about conspiracy theories of the lack of access this spring. I think that's more of the concern than the other stuff. Now, the other stuff might be a concern as well, but I think the big picture stuff, what they can be benefiting by, is not showing everything out. And you can have a situation like in 2021 where they showed up against Louisville in the Georgia Dome playing a completely different defense than they have ever played before, and nobody knew a thing about it.
Exactly. And, anybody that's been through a few springs, especially with Kiffin, knows that I'm going to the spring game, but we're going to see a very vanilla offense and defense in the spring game. And God knows what we'll see when the year rolls around, especially when SEC time gets here.
Yeah, I think Cayden Lee, I think Ayden Williams, and I think Cedrick Reescano are probably the three players offensively that the spring is most important for. I think Suntarine Perkins, I think Raymond Collins, the linebacker, the transfer from Jones County, and Cedrick Beavers, those JUCO players. I think spring practice is going to be pretty important for them defensively.
Oh, I agree. I definitely agree. And they've got to get that spring in and get going,
Changing the subject a little bit later on today, Ole Miss is going to take on Marquette in a 7-10 March Madness game in the NCAA tournament. Coach Yo has the ladies up there with a chance to – Ole Miss gets to play in a white jersey, and that's one of the signs of advancement. Everybody's going to talk about that. Wearing a white jersey in the first round is the first goal that you have, and you move forward to being a top 4 seed to where hopefully you can host a pod as well. That's the next step. But going up against Marquette, I talked to Brantley Sanderson. He said that Marquette really shoots the heck out of the ball, but their guards are small. Their guards are kind of slower than Ole Miss, and they don't have an inside presence much to speak of, which means there's pretty much, it sounds to me, there's one way that Ole Miss loses this game, and that is if Marquette is just unbelievably hot.
Yeah, that's their only hope. Mm-hmm. Although Snuta Collins is not playing. She didn't make the trip. But no, that sounds like it's right up our alley. We're a aggressive defensive ball club, and I think that Coach Yo is raring to go. Also, the team, of course, is raring to go as well.
Yeah, and nobody from Marquette is going to be able to guard Maddie Scott. Nobody. No. There's nobody, because their tallest big person down low is like 6'1", which means they're going to be 3 to 4 inches shorter than the big bigs on Ole Miss's Lady Rebs. It's so weird to refer to the Lady Rebs, any players, as a big. Exactly. It's like my alarm's going off. It's like my mom's going to throw an eraser at me or something. So the situation, if you look at the men's side, it looks like Rashad Marshall is going to transfer. He's committed to Arkansas State. So that's one player. Yeah. And Ajay from Pepperdine is apparently going to visit Ole Miss.
Yeah. I think that's Gonzaga.
Yeah, sometime next week. Yeah, Ole Miss and Gonzaga going after – his last name's Ajay. I can't remember his first name.
I can't either, but I did read where he averaged about 17 points a game this year. So we could always use that.
I think he averages nearly 10 rebounds a game too.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss really can use that.
We need somebody that can rebound. I was slightly disappointed in our rebounding this year. We had 2 7-footers, and it just seemed like we would get whipped on the boards constantly.
You remember, you're about my age. You've had these thoughts, but for years on Ole Miss basketball, I was like, oh man, wouldn't it be great if we almost had a 7-footer?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there's a couple of 6'11" players. I mean, like I remember Patrick Eddy. And players like that standing out.
Yeah.
But not quite a 7-foot player. And then you have two of them in Jamarian Sharp and Mamu Cisse. And you just couldn't rebound the ball. It was like this team was allergic to loose balls. It was amazing.
Yeah, it blew my mind. I'm the same way. I think Sean Murphy,
Yes.
you know,
Ed Murphy's son.
yeah, yeah. And other than that, like you said, not a whole lot of folks. And yeah, I was excited and I was so let down. And, Sharp got his share of blocks and this and that and the other. But as far as muscling in there and getting boards, we just couldn't do it this year.
And speaking of which, and we haven't done it yet, I love the throwbacks to the Rod Barnes era jerseys, those throwback jerseys. I think that Ole Miss needs to have their navy blue and red jerseys. They need to do them in the style of what Ed Murphy had with Gerald Glass.
Those were cool.
Yeah, those were some really good looking uniforms. So the red jerseys and the navy blue jersey, heck, even do the powders in those style. And maybe you can do something like do one in the 2001 with the stripes on the side that they had this year, the throwbacks, and you can have some jersey in some color to break those out as well. And just the other style, do the throwbacks to the Ed Murphy's, Gerald Glass.
Would be awesome. And to break those out in the tad pad would just be awesome for people my age.
Yeah, it would be really good because honestly, I like the white jerseys, but the navy blue jersey from that era might have been the best looking jersey that Ole Miss has had in basketball in the last 40 years.
Oh yeah, it was clean. It was nice.
Just the red numbers and letters and the navy blue, and it was just slightly piped in white. It looked really good.
Yeah.
So changing the subject right now, Ole Miss is on Rocky Top. We're recording this on Friday, just literally 15 minutes before the baseball game started, just so everybody knows what's going on. But this is a game where Ole Miss is going up there, like I've said all week. They're facing the SEC's resident psychopath. They're going up to deal with crazy people. Tennessee's a top 10 team. They lost 2 games last week against Alabama, but they're going back to their little bandbox stadium at altitude, and they're going to try and hit home runs. That makes me really nervous for somebody like Gunnar Dennis. I think Liam Dole, he has ability to miss bats, and I think Grayson Saunier can be hit or miss in that. But I am worried about Gunnar Dennis, what he would do, which would obviously be last night. But we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing what Liam Dole can do because he can shove.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, we our buddy Derek was right. We've got a lot more arms than at least I thought we had after some injuries early in the year, and of course carrying over from last year. But yeah, I'm excited to see how they do. I really am.
Yeah, and I figure if Ole Miss can get one this weekend.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm rooting for Ole Miss to get 3, but I'm saying if they get 1, I think it's job done. If they get 2 against Kentucky, I think they need to get 1 against Tennessee, 2 against Kentucky, go into the Arkansas series at 5-4 and see what happens.
I agree. I think that's good. Yeah, of course, like you said, we're rooting for a sweep, but it's hard to do that on the road in SEC, even in Knoxville.
I was looking online, and I was like, hey, Auburn's 0-4 right now. Why? Auburn's was supposed to be good. What is going on? And right now they're playing number 1 Arkansas after being swept by Vanderbilt. There's a chance that they're going after this into Texas A&M, and after that they have Tennessee.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, they're looking at like 2-10 square in the eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the SEC for you. SEC baseball's it's the cream of the crop.
Yeah, if you're not careful, the season's over before you even know what's happening.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like the year we won the Natty. We were the last ones in.
Yeah. And by the way, there's some nice revisionist history about that season, and everybody was freaking out. But the reality is Kevin Graham getting injured for the majority of that season. And then he came back and Ole Miss went on the run. So before he went down and after he went down, Ole Miss was completely different ball team.
Exactly. We were really good.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you know, they can say what they want, baby. We got the natty.
That's right. That's right. And Southern Mississippi in their poverty field, they do not even have a trip to Omaha.
God bless them.
The Mustard Buzzards.
Yes, sir.
So anyway, thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Anyway, Tom Vanderford, thank you so much for stopping by today, and we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Hotty toddy, everybody.